So while we're still not getting answers on Jeffrey Epstein and the Epstein client list, I mean, it's fairly obvious to people why government officials are trying to ignore this, why Trump's trying to cover it up, why, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, all the people that campaigned and rally on transparency and going after the deep state, going after the gangsters within government, decide to become gangsters. It's all one big club, and you and I ain't it. That's unfortunately what's come out of this. That Trump is no different. The MAGA administration really couldn't care less about America or Americans, and is really serving the same masters that brought everybody into power. And I want to bring attention to this in regards to Epstein, because these stories, I don't want to be left, thrown under the rug and kept in the dark about this, because these are revelations that should continue to be ongoing, even though we're not getting the official client list. We have assumptions, we have theories, we have rough ideas on who was at the island, who was involved with the sex trafficking, who was involved allegedly, thanks to publications like Whitney Webb's book, which I highly recommend people checking out. There's other publications out there that have reported on this. There's other investigators who have done work on this. So I thank them for not letting this, go silent. And I think that's important, that we can't allow for this kind of information to go silent. So even the New York Post, I was kind of surprised that they came forward with this article here. So Virginia Giuffre, remember Virginia Giuffre, the top Jeffrey Epstein accuser, who unfortunately has passed in a car accident that seems very, very suspicious, that the Australian government, the United States government, that no one's really investigating, no one's curious about how a bus crash in Australia where the bus driver was going, I think it was like 70 miles an hour or something like that, in a residential area. No one's concerned about this. No one is questioning her mysterious death. But Virginia Giuffre is back in the headlines because apparently she has a new memoir. And it says, Virginia Giuffre being raped by well-known prime minister in attack that broke Epstein's spell, her memoir reveals. So this is part of a memoir that, while she relocated to Australia from leaving the United States after accusing Jeffrey Epstein of his wrongdoings, now, according to this memoir, that I don't know if the actual book got released or not, but they're claiming that in this memoir that she got raped, she got assaulted by a former prime minister, according to this article. This says, prominent Jeffrey Epstein victim Virginia Roberts Giuffre was brutally bloodied, beaten, and raped by a well-known prime minister in a series of savage encounters that finally helped the teenager break free from the sex trafficker's spell. In her posthumous memoir, Nothing's Girl, a memoir surviving abuse and fighting for justice, Giuffre recalled begging Epstein to step in after the unnamed politician forced her to beg for her life, but the fan of the playground coldly told her it was simply part of her job. After the attack, I couldn't stay a fool, having been treated so brutally, and then seeing Epstein's callous reaction to how terrorized I felt. I had to accept that Epstein meted out praise merely as a manipulation to keep me subservient, Giuffre wrote, according to the excerpt shared with the Post. Epstein cared only about Epstein. Giuffre simply referred to the deranged man as the prime minister, saying she was afraid the brute would seek to hurt her if she printed his name. In the past, however, she pointed to Israel's prime minister, Ehud Barak, in court filings as one of many elites who had assaulted her and claimed he was repeatedly denied. And we know that Ehud Barak, the former Israeli prime minister, went to Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan apartment numerous times. Numerous times. They were inviting Israeli officials. They were inviting foreign dignitaries. That's where the assumption came in That's where it started, the assumption that Jeffrey Epstein had ties to Mossad, had ties to intelligence agencies within Israel. Also, the fact that at the time when he was together with Ghislaine Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father was one of the heads of the Mossad agency. So there's definitely a deep connection within this. And people don't want to discuss that because Israel's a friend of ours. Israel is such a great ally that it blackmails, deceives, it bribes people. And if word gets out about this, they try to silence people. Which, again, is kind of suspicious on Giuffre's death, considering everything we know about her, considering how outspoken she was previously. That just seems very, very mysterious that all of a sudden she would die from a bus crash. And it wasn't even the bus crash that potentially killed her. It was weeks after that. It was the impact that followed that doctors were lying to her about it. But again, no real investigation is reporting on this. One of the biggest accusers of Jeffrey Epstein. Very, very suspicious. In her memoir, Giuffre said she first met the prime minister on Epstein's private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands sometime in 2002 when she was just 18 years old. She was ordered to escort him to a cabana, but the man made it clear as soon as they were alone that he wanted violence. He repeatedly choked me until I lost consciousness and took pleasure in seeing me in fear for my life. Horrifically, the prime minister laughed when he hurt me and got more aroused when I begged him to stop. I emerged from the cabana bleeding from my mouth, my vagina, my anus. For days, it hurt to breathe and to swallow, Giuffre wrote. The politician assaulted me with more savagely than anyone had ever before. She immediately rushed to Epstein and begged him not to send her back to the prime minister. I got down on my knees and pleaded with him. I don't know if Epstein feared the man or if he owed him a favor, but he wouldn't make any promises, saying coldly of the prime minister's brutality. You'll get that sometimes, she continued. Sometime later, Epstein sent her back to the politician for a second encounter, conducted entirely in a cabin aboard the Lolita Express. Although the experience was far less violent, Giuffre spent the entire hour in fear he would suddenly strike or choke her, she wrote. Giuffre admitted that before the violent experience, she had given Epstein the benefit of the doubt and believed he cared for the girls he sex trafficked. She was not completely naive, she wrote, acknowledging that his predilection of childlike girls was a sickness, but that is in his twisted way he meant well. His indifference to her fear and injuries from the prime minister forced the 18-year-old to face the truth. Chillingly, Giuffre then protected her own death in the passage, saying she would have not survived a life of sex trafficking and would have either taken her own life or died at the hands of one of Epstein's friends. I didn't know it then, but my second interaction with the prime minister was the beginning of the end for me, Giuffre said, adding that she stopped recruiting other young girls for Epstein as he had forced her to do in the past. The final breaking point came the summer when Epstein and his madam, Ghislaine Maxwell, pleaded with Giuffre to carry their child. A proposal that came with mansions, wealth, and around-the-clock nannies, but would require her to sign away any legal rights. The teen immediately worried they were planning to use the baby as a future trafficking victim and began planning her escape. She left the group's crafts not long after, but her experiences haunted her for the rest of her life, particularly the greedy, cruel look on the prime minister's face as he watched me beg for my life. Barack has repeatedly denied Giuffre's abuse claims or knowledge that Epstein was running a perverted sex ring. Barack was also was a personal friend of Epstein's and used several $1 million of Epstein's money to finance a security company. And that was the thing that Tucker Carlson also pointed out, was how did Jeffrey Epstein, a guy whose claim to fame is being a math tutor at the Dalton School in New York City, how does a teacher become one of the wealthiest financiers in the world? How does a man who's just a teacher able to get so much money that he's able to provide a private island for himself, private jets, escorting people, and bribing people? How is he able to get that much money? And that's where the suspicion came in. That's where the investigation came in, that Epstein is not a financier, that Epstein is a prop to a network. And that's where people want to investigate. They couldn't care less if Epstein himself sex trafficked underage people for himself. They care about the network. They want to know who's involved in this trafficking, because the people in this network, many of them are still alive. Many of them are still operating. Much of this network is still running. And that's why they're refusing to give any information about this. That's why Trump's refusing to reveal any information. Whether or not he's on this list or not is irrelevant, because Trump knows about the network. That's why the Democrats are refusing to reveal any information. No one is willing to give up this information. And that's why someone like Virginia Giuffre, unfortunately, passed away. And no one's allowed to investigate. No one's allowed to question how the top Epstein accuser, who said what she said back in the day, is unfortunately no longer with us after a bus crash, a mysterious bus crash that no one's allowed to investigate. Very interesting. So it also says, I just want to show at the bottom here, the chilling tale was included in Giuffre's memoir, set to be released next week, which she penned in the years before her before her self-deletion in April. So there's even the New York Post, after revealing this, they still want to say she self-deleted herself, which is false. She never ever intended to harm herself. Never. And we have proof of that. Here's this. This is from Virginia Giuffre herself, moments before she died, saying, "I'm sorry to tell you that I've given the authorities in 6 different countries all the names. I have even and still am fighting for my depositions to be released so that they can be held accountable. I'm just one person. I can't take on the 1%ers myself. I do want to live a lengthy life." So that's her openly stating that she never intended to self-harm herself. Here's another post. This is her in the hospital. And underneath that is the post saying, "I am making it publicly known that in no way, shape, or form am I self-deleting myself. I have made this known to my therapist and my general practitioner. If something happens to me in the sake of my friends and my family, do not let this go away and help me protect them. Too many evil people want to see me quieted." That's exactly what happened. And that's why I'm telling people to not let this story die. Do not let this information die. Share this information around. Make sure people are aware that this network is still happening. There's still sex trafficking around us. And we're not going to be budged to keep quiet of this. But they want to keep you quiet because of who's involved in this and how much power he holds within the sex trafficking rings. Because this is not just about, sexual perversion of older adults. This is about power. This is about manipulation. If you go and read Whitney Webb's book about this, One Nation Under Blackmail, it describes in detail how for years, just even before Jeffrey Epstein, years, they have always tried to use trafficking, sexual manipulation blackmail, deception to try to one-up each other in this conquest to blackmail each other so more people can get more power. That's what made J. Edgar Hoover such a powerful figure. Was it because he was a good FBI agent? No. Because he had information, dirt on everybody. Everybody. And when you have dirt and information on everybody, you have control over them. You can manipulate them. You can blackmail them. You can skeeve them. You can do whatever you want to them. That's what Jeffrey Epstein was allegedly doing. How does a guy come from a poor background where his father was a janitor and his mother, I think, was a substitute teacher? I think that was the case. How does a guy grow up from, rags to riches so quickly and gets involved in private islands and private jets and being able to bribe people? How does that happen? How does that happen? So here's Global Descent. This is Virginia Giuffre. This was years beforehand. This is her interview with NBC News saying Virginia Giuffre dead at 41, silence for good. She exposed Epstein, Maxwell, and Prince Andrew. Yes, Prince Andrew was one of the big clientele people on Epstein's list. So we have details on certain people, but we're not allowed to investigate. We're not allowed to expose them. We're not allowed to question things. But we know that Prince Andrew is a person of interest. So was Bill Gates. So was Bill Clinton. So was Donald Trump. So was many Hollywood stars. So we have some suspicion, but we're not allowed to talk about it. And here's Virginia Giuffre on an NBC interview openly stating Epstein, Maxwell, and Prince Andrew as being the perpetrators behind this sex trafficking.
I was so young. Ghislaine woke me up in the morning and said, "You're going to meet a prince today." I didn't know at that point that I was going to be trafficked to that prince. And then that night, Prince Andrew came to her house in London, and we went out to Club Tramp. Prince Andrew got me alcohol. It was in the VIP section. I'm pretty sure it was vodka. Prince Andrew was like, "Let's dance together." And I was like, okay. And we leave Club Tramp, and I hop in the car with Ghislaine and Jeffrey, and Ghislaine said, "He's coming back to the house, and I want you to do for him what you do for Epstein." I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that even royalty were involved.
So ultimately, that's why no one's releasing any information. And I even said when Trump was kind of, announcing that he was going to cover this up, that he wasn't going to release the Epstein files in America, I said it's kind of suspicious that Canada hasn't said anything about this. The UK hasn't said anything about this. The Australian government isn't even curious about this. I mean, Virginia Giuffre was living in Australia. She was a permanent resident of Australia. You're not concerned about her murder? You're not concerned about a bus crash that happened that eventually killed her? No. Obviously, she died from self-deletion. This is why. Because there's royalties, there's high dignitaries, there's business people, there's philanthropists, entrepreneurs, tycoons, billionaires, the whole works. And it's a powerful network. It's a powerful network that involves blackmail, deception, betrayal. And if any information got released about this, that will crumble the very power structure that keeps these malice people in positions where they are. So here is Hotspot to remind us this. So James O'Keefe uncovered this. Prince Andrew was blanking underage girls. Former confidant claims to a string by James O'Keefe. John Bryan adds the disgraced royal was allegedly close friends with Epstein. So he did an undercover for his OMG Media. And this is a guy who's a close companion of Prince Andrew. And he's revealing to James O'Keefe or one of his undercover reporters that, yes, he was involved in sex trafficking with underage girls. So, listen to this.
For other girls. I was so pissed about that. I was really pissed. I was really pissed because he lied to me about it.
Lied about
Epstein. Yeah. No, I knew he saw him, but he lied to me that he was such a close friend. I was so pissed. And then I did a big thing in the Daily Mail saying that I believed Andrew, and then I found out he was lying. I was so pissed. No, that he was f***ing underage girls.
So what he just revealed there is that Prince Andrew lied to him. This guy believed Prince Andrew. He then went to the Daily Mail and did a defense piece after Prince Andrew was accused by Virginia Giuffre. This guy went to the Daily Mail to try to defend Prince Andrew. And it turns out he then later finds out that Prince Andrew was lying to him. And he's saying he's pissed. I'm pissed off that Prince Andrew, my confidant, lied to me about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm pissed off that he knew about this network. I'm pissed off he was part of this. And that he was boinking underage girls. So, a royal is definitely involved in this list. Mossad is definitely involved in this list. The CIA, the FBI, MI6. So many people, so many backgrounds. And this has been going on for decades. This has been going on for decades. We showed you way beforehand, Patrick Bet-David had on that woman who was a survivor of sex trafficking. And she named Pierre Elliott Trudeau and John Rockefeller as two of the top accusers running their own network. So this idea of human trafficking did not come from Jeffrey Epstein. This has been going on for decades. This is unfortunately the sick, twisted foundation that got these malice people in position of power where they're taking abuse on other people. That's how they keep this power afloat. Just like as Whitney Webb's book points out, that this is an entire operation strictly of blackmail. And it's done by the top 1% of the world who doesn't give a crap. They don't care about morals. They don't care about ethics. They don't care about anything. They care about themselves. They care about power. They're selfish. They're entitled. They're very, very sociopathic. And that's where you get. You get a sociopathic liar telling your closest confidant, no, I did not do that. Go to the Daily Mail and write articles defending me. And now this guy is now telling OMG that I was pissed because Prince Andrew lied to me. So that is just crazy, folks. And I know people out there, I know there's going to be people out there, especially in the bots and Twitter sphere, that are going to smack this down and say, well, why should I care about this? There's more important things than Epstein and trafficking, and well, he's dead, so everything should be working out okay. Stop talking about this. It's a Democratic hoax. Like they're trying to play the Trump card on this. But also the reason why I don't want this to be silent, because not only has there been victims of the past that have not gotten justice, there's also current victims that haven't got any attention. So remember this? Remember this came out? ICE unable to track nearly 300,000 immigrant children. That's according to the Department of Homeland Security. So Homeland Security is getting information that ICE cannot track 300,000 immigrant children. And there was reports coming out after Maui, the fire that was that engulfed a lot of Hawaii, that there was reported missing children that they still have not found. There's reported missing children from California during the wildfires that they have not found. There's hundreds and thousands of missing children in America and probably around the world that have not been reported, that have not been have not been mainstream media attention. And this is where people come to conclusions, come to assumptions. They start to theorize the idea that maybe they were kidnapped, maybe they were part of trafficking, maybe they're still involved in trafficking. So that's why this is a big deal. That's why I'm never going to let this go. That's why the Epstein files should be released no matter what. I don't care what anyone has to say. I don't care what excuse you have to make. This should not be happening. This should not be happening. What if this was your kids? What if this was you? What if you were a victim? Do you want this to be covered up? Do you want the President of the United States to say that's a Democratic hoax and everyone should shut the hell up? After campaigning about it? After bringing attention to this? After how many weeks onto the election that he reminded people about this horror? Now he's saying it's a Democratic hoax. Oh, don't bring it up. Why are people bringing attention to Jeffrey Epstein? There's so many beautiful things I've done. This is why. This is why. Because there's missing children periodically that have not been searched, that have not been investigated, that mainstream media has completely ignored. And for all the other victims like Virginia Giuffre, who's unfortunately no longer with us because we're not allowed to investigate why she's no longer with us, and all the other victims of sex trafficking, do they not deserve justice? Do they not deserve a actual, moment of peace and closure and understand that this cannot happen? It's just absolutely diabolical. It's so diabolical. It's so evil. And it's so bigger than Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and even certain people on this list. Again, it's about the blackmail. It's about the power it beholds from it. And if any word got out about it, holy crap, there goes the entire, fundamentals of this heinous society that we live in. That the 1%, the malice 1%, that controls and manipulates, that does everything against the world, their power no longer exists. That their atrocity can no longer be done. And that's why they're refusing to release any information about this and even trying to deliberately silence people in the most grotesque way possible. So I will tell you, for myself, I've already stated this before, I have no intention of self-harming myself. I have no intention to self-deletion. If anything happens to me, please do not let this be covered up. Do not let them lie to you. Do not let them manipulate you to say that, Jason Kitz self-deleted himself. No. That is obviously a lie. That is obviously to shut me up. And luckily, I'm not going to be shut up. Because as long as I still have this microphone, as long as I still have this channel, I'm going to keep going with this as long as it takes to finally get some answers. And that's what people should be demanding too.